Kate Morrison pushed through the thick crystal forest on planet Cathara. Her boots crunched on the strange blue ground. The tall crystal trees made weird sounds in the wind. She held her scanner close to her face. The red dot on the screen was getting stronger. Someone was sending a distress signal from deep in these woods. Kate worked as a security contractor now. She used to be a soldier on Earth. Now she helped people who got into trouble on dangerous planets like this one. The scanner beeped faster. She was getting close. Kate pulled out her weapon and checked it. The crystal trees around here could hide many dangers. Strange creatures lived in these forests. Some of them were not friendly to humans. Kate saw smoke rising ahead. She moved carefully between the crystal formations. The ground here was covered with broken pieces of metal and burnt equipment. Someone had been in a big fight here. She found the remains of a research camp. Tents were torn apart. Scientific equipment was scattered everywhere. Burn marks covered the ground where energy weapons had fired. Kate counted at least 6 different blast patterns. This had been a serious attack. A small sound came from behind a large crystal boulder. Kate raised her weapon and moved toward the noise. 2 figures huddled behind the rock. One was tall with pointed ears and pale skin. The other was human with short brown hair. The elf woman looked up first. Her clothes were dirty and torn. Blood ran down her arm from a deep cut. She had the look of someone who studied old things for a living. Her hands shook as she held a broken datapad. The human woman was younger. She wore the kind of clothes scientists liked. Her face was covered with dirt and fear. She clutched a medical kit against her chest like it was the most important thing in the world. Kate lowered her weapon slowly. She did not want to scare them more than they already were. The 2 women looked like they had been through something terrible. The elf woman spoke first. Her voice was quiet and careful. She said her name was Lyra Voss. She worked as an archaeologist. She studied the old ruins that ancient aliens had left behind on different planets. The human woman was Nina Brooks. She was a xenobiologist. That meant she studied alien lifeforms. Both women had been part of a research team working near here. Lyra explained what had happened. Her team had been studying some very old ruins deeper in the forest. The ruins belonged to a race called the Kethmori. Most people thought the Kethmori were all dead now. They had disappeared many years ago when humans first came to this part of space. The research team had been working peacefully for several weeks. They were making exciting discoveries about Kethmori culture. Then armed men had attacked them without warning. These men wore military gear but no uniforms. They were mercenaries working for someone with money. The attack had been brutal and fast. Most of the research team had been killed in the first few minutes. Lyra and Nina had only survived because they were working in a different part of the camp when the shooting started. But something strange had happened during the attack. A huge creature had appeared from the deep ruins. It was unlike anything the scientists had ever seen. The creature was large and covered with fur. It walked on 2 legs like a person, but was much bigger and stronger. The creature had sharp claws and fierce yellow eyes. It moved like a hunter, but also like someone protecting something precious. When the mercenaries tried to follow it into the ruins, it had fought back with incredible strength and speed. Nina had seen the creature carrying something small. At first she thought it might be carrying weapons. But then she realized the truth. The creature was carrying babies. 3 small versions of itself clung to its back as it ran from the attackers. The mercenaries had been excited by this discovery. Their leader had started shouting orders about capturing the creature alive. He kept talking about how valuable it would be. He used words like specimen and research subject. Lyra and Nina had hidden while the mercenaries organized a hunting party. They heard the leader talking on his communication device. He was reporting to someone important. He kept saying that they had found proof that Kethmori still existed. The creature had led the hunters deeper into the ruins. That had been several hours ago. Since then, Lyra and Nina had been hiding and trying to fix their broken emergency. Beacon. That was the signal Kate had followed to find them. Kate asked where the hunters had gone. Lyra pointed toward a section of the forest where the crystal trees grew in strange patterns. Ancient stone structures could be seen between the trees. The Kethmori ruins stretched for miles in that direction. Nina was worried about the creature and its babies. She said the creature had been bleeding when it ran away. The mercenaries had hit it with several energy blasts before it escaped. If it was badly hurt, it might not be able to protect its young much longer. Kate made a decision. She could call for backup and wait for help to arrive. That would be the safe thing to do. But the creature and its babies might be dead by then. The mercenaries sounded like the kind of people who would kill anything that got in their way. She told Lyra and Nina to stay hidden. She would go after the hunters and see what she could do to help. Both women wanted to come with her. Lyra said she knew the ruins better than anyone. Nina said she might be able to help if the creature was injured. Kate thought about this. Having help would be useful, but it would also be more dangerous. She looked at both women carefully. They were scared but determined. They both seemed to care about what happened to the creature and its babies. Kate decided to let them come. She gave them both weapons and checked their equipment. They would need to be very careful. The mercenaries sounded professional and well armed. This was not going to be easy. The three women began moving toward the ruins. Kate led the way, using her military training to keep them hidden. The crystal trees provided good cover, but they also made it hard to see very far ahead. As they got closer to the ruins, they began to see signs of the hunt. Broken branches marked where the mercenaries had passed. Burn marks on the crystal trees showed where weapons had been fired. The hunters were following a clear trail of blood. Kate felt worried about what they would find. The creature had been protecting its babies when the attack started. Now it was wounded and being hunted by armed men who wanted to capture it alive. That meant they would try to hurt it just enough to stop it from fighting back. The ancient Kethmori ruins rose up around them as they moved deeper into the forest. The stone structures were covered with strange symbols and carvings. Some of the buildings were still intact after all these years. Others had fallen down and were covered with crystal growths. Nina stopped to look at some of the symbols on a nearby wall. She said, they looked like they might be about family and protection. The Kethmori had built these places as homes for their children. That made what was happening even more sad. Kate heard voices ahead. She motioned for the others to be quiet. They crept forward until they could see what was happening. The sight that met their eyes would change everything. Kate crouched behind a fallen stone pillar and looked at the scene ahead. 6 armed mercenaries had surrounded a collapsed chamber in the ruins. Their leader was a tall man with gray hair and cold eyes. He wore expensive military gear and carried weapons that looked very advanced. The man was giving orders to his team. Kate could hear him talking about tranquilizer darts and capture nets. He wanted the creature taken alive and unharmed, but he did not seem to care about the babies it was protecting. Through a gap in the collapsed stones, Kate could see into the chamber. A massive creature sat in the back corner, holding 3 small forms against its chest. The creature was unlike anything Kate had ever seen before. It looked like a cross between a human and a large cat. Its body was covered with golden brown fur that had dark stripes. It stood nearly 7 feet tall, even while sitting down. Its arms were long and muscular, ending in hands that had sharp claws instead of fingernails. The creature's face was the most human part of it. It had large yellow eyes that showed intelligence and emotion. Its nose was flat like a cat's, but its mouth could clearly form expressions. Right now, those expressions showed pain and fierce determination. Blood ran down the creature's left shoulder from where an energy blast had hit it. More blood soaked into the fur on its leg. But despite its injuries, it kept its 3 babies pressed safely against its chest. The babies were much smaller versions of their parent. They had the same golden fur and yellow eyes. Kate could see that they were scared but trying to be brave. They stayed very still and quiet, trusting their parent to protect them. One of the mercenaries raised a tranquilizer gun. Kate knew she had to act fast. She stood up from behind the pillar and pointed her weapon at the mercenaries. Kate shouted for them to stop. All 6 men turned toward her with their weapons ready. The leader looked annoyed but not surprised. He acted like he had been expecting someone else to show up. The leader said his name was Commander Hayes. He worked for a company that collected rare biological specimens from across the galaxy. He had a legal contract to explore this planet and take anything valuable that he found. Kate told him that she did not care about his contract. She was not going to let him hurt a creature that was just trying to protect its babies. Hayes laughed and said she did not understand how important this discovery was. Hayes explained that everyone thought the Kethmori were extinct. Finding living ones would be worth millions of credits to the right buyers. The creature and its babies would live comfortable lives in research facilities where scientists could study them. Kate did not believe him. She had seen research facilities before. The creatures kept, they were not comfortable. They were prisoners used for experiments. She told Hayes that she would not let that happen. Hayes seemed to realize that Kate was serious about fighting. He ordered his men to take positions around the chamber, but he also told them not to shoot Kate unless they had to. He said killing a human would create too much paperwork. While this was happening, Lyra had been studying the symbols carved into the stone walls around the chamber. She whispered to Kate that she thought she could communicate with the creature. The symbols suggested that the Kethmori had a complex language. Lyra moved slowly toward the gap in the stones. She held her hands up to show she was not carrying weapons. The creature watched her carefully, but did not try to attack. Lyra began, making soft sounds and simple gestures. She pointed to herself and said her name slowly. Then she pointed to the creature and made a questioning sound. She was trying to ask what the creature was called. The creature looked confused at first. Then it made a low rumbling sound that might have been its version of speaking. The sound was deep and musical, like a cat purring but much more complex. Nina recognized that the creature was trying to communicate. She had studied many different alien species and knew how to read body language. The creature was hurt and scared, but it was also intelligent enough to understand that Lyra was trying to help. Hayes was getting impatient with all this talking. He ordered his men to prepare the tranquilizer guns again. He said they had wasted enough time and needed to capture the creature before more people showed up. Kate moved to block the entrance to the chamber. She told Hayes that he would have to go through her first. Hayes looked angry, but also impressed. He said most people would not risk their lives for some alien animals. Kate replied that these were not animals. The creature was clearly intelligent and was acting like any parent would act. It was protecting its children from danger. That made it worthy of respect, not capture. Nina had been watching the smallest of the 3 babies. She noticed that it was not moving as much as the other 2. Its breathing looked shallow, and its eyes were not as bright. She told Kate that the baby might be sick or injured. The creature seemed to understand Nina's concern. It made soft, worried sounds and held the small baby closer. Its yellow eyes looked directly at Nina with an expression that clearly asked for help. Nina asked Hayes to let her examine the baby. She said that if it was sick, it might die before they could get it to a research facility. That would make it worthless to his employers. Hayes thought about this. He wanted to deliver healthy specimens, not dead ones. But he also did not trust Nina to get close to the creature. He was afraid she might try to help it escape. Kate suggested a compromise. Nina could examine the baby, while Kate and Lyra stayed between the creature and Hayes' men. If anyone tried anything violent, Kate would make sure they regretted it. Hayes agreed to this plan, but only for 5 minutes. He said his employers were expecting results soon. If they took too long, more mercenaries would come looking for them. Nina approached the creature very slowly. She kept her medical kit visible and made soothing sounds like she would use with any frightened animal. The creature watched her every move but seemed to understand that she wanted to help. When Nina got close enough, the creature carefully held out the smallest baby. Nina could see immediately that the little one was in bad shape. It had a fever and was having trouble breathing. It needed medicine soon, or it would not survive. Nina told the others what she had found. The baby needed a specific type of treatment that she could provide, but only if she had access to her full medical equipment. Most of her supplies had been destroyed when the mercenaries attacked the research camp. Kate asked what kind of supplies Nina needed. Nina said she could probably find what she needed in the ruins themselves. The Kethmori had been an advanced species. Their medical knowledge might still be preserved in some of the intact buildings. Hayes did not want to let them search the ruins. He said it would take too long and was too dangerous, but Kate pointed out that a dead baby would be worthless to his employers. A healthy one would be worth much more. The creature had been listening to this conversation. It could not understand all the words, but it clearly understood that these people were talking about helping its baby. It made a decision that surprised everyone. The creature stood up slowly, still holding its 3 babies. It looked directly at Kate and made a series of complex sounds. Then it began walking toward a passage that led deeper into the ruins. Lyra said the creature was inviting them to follow. It was offering to show them something important. Hayes ordered his men to follow at a distance. He wanted to see where the creature would lead them. Kate, Lyra, and Nina walked beside the creature as it moved through the ancient corridors. Despite its injuries, it moved with grace and purpose. It clearly knew these ruins very well. The passage led to a large chamber filled with intact Kethmori artifacts. Strange machines lined the walls, and symbols covered every surface. In the center of the room was something that looked like a medical facility. Nina gasped when she saw the equipment. Much of it was still functional after all these years. With tools like these, she might be able to save the sick baby and treat the creatures. Injuries too, but Hayes and his men had followed them into the chamber. They were amazed by all the intact technology. Hayes started talking about how valuable all of this would be to his employers. Kate realized that they had just made the situation much more complicated. Now Hayes did not just want the creatures. He wanted everything in this room, and he would kill anyone who tried to stop him from taking it. The creature moved to one of the ancient machines and placed its hand on a glowing panel. The machine hummed to life with soft blue lights. Other equipment around the room began activating in response. The Kethmori technology was far more advanced than anything the humans had seen before. Nina stared in amazement as medical scanners began showing detailed images of the sick baby. The creature carefully placed the small one on a scanning platform. The machine showed that the baby had a serious infection that was affecting its breathing and heart. Hayes and his men were more interested in the technology than the sick baby. They began taking pictures and measurements of everything they could see. Hayes was already calling his employers to tell them about the discovery. Kate watched Hayes carefully. She could see greed in his eyes as he looked at all the valuable equipment. She knew he would never let them leave this place alive. Now that they had seen so much, the creature made urgent sounds and pointed to displays on the medical machine. Lyra tried to understand what it was saying. The symbols on the displays matched some of the language patterns she had studied in the ruins. Lyra said the creature was trying to tell them that the baby needed a specific medicine. The medicine was made from minerals found deep in the ruins. But getting to those minerals would be dangerous because the passages were unstable. Nina said she could modify the medicine using her own medical supplies if someone could bring her the minerals. But the journey would take hours, and the baby might not have that much time left. Kate volunteered to go find the minerals. She had military training in dangerous environments. Hayes immediately said no. He could not let her wander around the ruins alone. She might try to escape or call for help. The creature seemed to understand the problem. It made a decision that surprised everyone again. It carefully handed its 2 healthy babies to Nina, then stood up and pointed to itself and then to Kate. Lyra translated what the creature was trying to say. It wanted to go with Kate to find the minerals. It knew the safe paths through the deep ruins better than anyone, and it trusted Nina to take care of its babies while it was gone. Hayes did not like this plan at all. If the creature left with Kate, he would lose control of the situation, but he also knew that without the minerals, the baby would die, and dead specimens were worthless to his employers. Kate promised Hayes that she would return with the creature and the minerals. She said they all wanted the same thing, to keep the babies alive and healthy. Hayes agreed, but he sent 2 of his men to follow them. The creature led Kate through a hidden passage behind the medical chamber. The 2 mercenaries tried to follow, but the passage was too narrow for them to move quickly. Kate and the creature soon left them behind. Kate found herself walking beside the injured alien through tunnels that had been carved thousands of years ago. The creature moved quietly despite its size. It seemed to know exactly where it was going. As they walked, Kate began to notice that the creature was trying to teach her things. It would point to symbols on the walls and make specific sounds. Then it would point to Kate and wait for her to repeat the sounds. Kate realized that the creature was teaching her its language. The sounds it made had meanings. Some meant danger. Others meant safe path, or medicine, or family. Kate tried her best to learn and remember. The creature also seemed interested in Kate's equipment. It examined her weapons and tools with obvious curiosity. When Kate showed it how her scanner worked, the creature made excited sounds and pointed. 2 similar devices carved into the walls. They were building trust as they traveled deeper into the ruins. Kate began to see that the creature was not just intelligent, it was also kind and caring. It was risking its own life to save its baby, just like any human parent would do. The tunnels led to a vast underground chamber filled with crystal formations. The crystals glowed with their own light, creating beautiful patterns on the walls. But Kate could also see that many of the formations were unstable. The creature pointed to specific crystals that had the color and shape Nina had described. The minerals they needed were embedded in a formation near the center of the chamber, but reaching them would require careful climbing over unstable ground. Kate checked her equipment and began planning the safest route to the crystals. The creature watched her work and then began showing her a different path. Its route looked more dangerous, but would actually be much safer for someone who knew what to watch for. They worked together to reach the crystal formation. Kate used her tools to extract the minerals while the creature kept watch for falling rocks and shifting formations. They made a good team despite coming from completely different worlds. On the way back, they heard sounds of conflict coming from the medical chamber. Kate and the creature hurried through the passages, both worried about what they would find. When they arrived back at the chamber, they found chaos. Hayes' remaining men were trying to remove pieces of equipment, while Nina and Lyra tried to stop them. The 2 healthy babies were crying because they could sense the danger around them. Hayes was furious. When he saw Kate and the creature return, he accused them of taking too long on purpose. He said his employers were sending more mercenaries to secure the site. Everyone who was not useful would be eliminated. Kate handed the minerals to Nina and told her to start making the medicine. Nina immediately began working with the ancient medical equipment. The creature went to comfort its crying babies, making soft rumbling sounds to calm them down. Hayes pointed his weapon at Kate and told her that her usefulness was over. He had what he needed now. The creature and its babies would be captured, the technology would be taken, and any witnesses would be eliminated. Kate looked around the chamber and realized they were trapped. Hayes had more men and better weapons. The creature was injured and could not fight effectively while protecting its babies. Nina and Lyra were scientists, not soldiers. But Kate also noticed something that Hayes had missed. The creature had been activating more systems in the chamber while they were gone. Ancient security protocols were beginning to come online. The The Kethmori had built defenses into their most important sites. The creature made a series of complex SS and touched several panels around the room. Suddenly, energy barriers began forming across the entrances to the chamber. Hayes and his men found themselves trapped inside with their intended victims. Hayes realized that the situation had changed dramatically. The ancient defenses were designed to protect the medical facility from intruders. Now the intruders were locked inside, while the defenders had control of the systems. Kate saw their chance and took it. She attacked the nearest mercenary, while the creature used its claws to disable another. Nina grabbed the babies and ran to safety behind the medical equipment. Lyra began activating more of the ancient systems. The chamber filled with the sounds of battle. Energy blasts reflected off crystal surfaces and stone walls. The ancient machines continued working despite the chaos. Focused on their mission of healing the sick baby. Kate fought with everything she had learned in her military training. But she was outnumbered and outgunned. She was losing the battle, until the creature joined the fight beside her. Despite its injuries, the creature was a formidable warrior. It moved with incredible speed and grace, using its claws and strength to devastating effect. It fought not just for itself, but to protect its babies and the humans who had helped them. Working together, Kate and the creature began to turn the tide of battle. Hayes realized that his carefully planned capture mission had become a fight for survival. He started looking for ways to escape from the chamber. He had wanted to control. Nina managed to complete the medicine while the battle raged around her. She administered it to the sick baby, who immediately began showing signs of improvement. The creature saw this and made sounds of joy even while continuing to fight. But the celebration was short-lived. Hayes activated a device that sent out a signal to his employers. Soon, more mercenaries would arrive with heavy weapons and explosives. The ancient defenses would not be able to stop a full military assault. Kate knew they needed to find another way out of the ruins. The creature seemed to understand the danger too. It began activating more systems, searching for escape routes that had been hidden for thousands of years. The battle for survival was just beginning. The ancient systems revealed hidden passages that the creature began opening one by one. Kate helped Nina gather the babies while Lyra studied the symbols appearing on newly activated displays. The medical chamber had become command center for the entire ruin complex. Hayes and his surviving men were trapped behind energy barriers. But Kate knew this would not last long. The signal Hayes had sent would bring reinforcements within hours. They needed to escape before the mercenaries arrived with heavier weapons. Nina reported that the sick baby was responding well to the medicine. Its breathing had improved and its fever was dropping, but it still needed time to fully recover. Moving it too soon could cause the infection to return. The creature made urgent sounds and pointed two symbols on the main display. Lyra worked frantically to translate what it was trying to tell them. The symbols showed a map of the entire ruin complex with passages marked in different colors. Lyra realized that the ruins were much larger than anyone had known. They extended for miles underground, connecting to other ancient sites across the planet. The Kethmori had built a vast network of hidden cities and shelters. But the most important discovery was yet to come. The creature activated another system that began showing images from other locations. The displays showed other Kethmori communities that were still alive and hidden throughout the galaxy. Kate stared at the images in amazement. Families of creatures like their companion lived in secret colonies on dozens of different worlds. They had survived by staying hidden from humans and other species that might hunt them. The creature began making excited sounds and touching the displays. Lyra translated that it was trying to contact these other communities. The medical chamber was not just a hospital, it was also a communication center. Hayes heard the sounds from behind his energy barrier and realized what was happening. He began shouting into his communication device, reporting that the Kethmori were not extinct, but were hiding in communities across the galaxy. This information would be worth even more than the technology they had found. Nina watched the creature work with the communication systems and began to understand something important. The ritual the creature had been trying to perform when the mercenaries attacked was not just a ceremony. It was a way of announcing that its babies were ready to join the larger Kethmori community. The 3 babies represented the future of their species. They carried genetic information that was vital to the survival of all Kethmori communities. That was why their parent had risked everything to protect them. Lyra made another important discovery as she studied the symbols. The ruins showed that humans and Kethmori had lived peacefully together in the past. Ancient carvings depicted both species working side by side to build cities and explore space. But something had gone wrong thousands of years ago. A great war had scattered the Kethmori across the galaxy and forced them into hiding. The symbols suggested that fear and misunderstanding had turned natural allies into enemies. Kate realized that they had a chance to change history if they could help the creature complete its ritual and contact the other communities. They might be able to start healing the old wounds between humans and Kethmori. But first, they had to survive the immediate danger. The sound of aircraft approaching could be heard even through the thick stone walls. Hayes' reinforcements were arriving with military equipment, designed to break through any defense. The creature seemed to sense the approaching danger. It made a difficult decision. It began preparing its babies for the ritual, even though they were still very young. The sick baby was recovering, but was not yet strong enough for such an important ceremony. Nina objected that moving the babies too soon could harm them, but the creature gently touched her arm and made soft sounds that clearly meant thank you. It trusted her medical judgment, but it also knew that completing the ritual was more important than waiting for perfect conditions. Lyra helped translate as the creature began the ancient ceremony. It placed each baby on a special platform while singing complex songs in its native language. The platforms began glowing as they connected to the communication network. Images appeared on the displays, showing Kethmori communities receiving the signal. Families of creatures gathered around their own communication centers to welcome the new babies into their society. It was a beautiful moment of connection across vast distances of space. But the ceremony was interrupted by explosions as Hayes' reinforcements began attacking the ruins. The ancient energy barriers were strong, but they were not designed to withstand modern military weapons. Kate knew they had very little time left. She asked the creature if there were other ways out of the chamber. The creature pointed to a passage that led even deeper underground. But using that route would mean abandoning the communication center and all the valuable technology. Hayes had managed to contact his reinforcements and was directing their attack. He told them about the communication network and ordered them to capture it intact. The technology for contacting hidden alien communities would be priceless to his employers. Kate realized that Hayes would never stop hunting them as long as he thought he could profit from their capture. She made a difficult decision of her own. She would stay behind to delay the attackers while the others escaped with the babies. The creature immediately objected to this plan. It made sounds that clearly meant they should all stay together. Nina and Lyra also refused to leave Kate behind. They had become a team, and teams did not abandon their members. But Kate knew that military tactics sometimes required sacrifice. One person staying behind could give the others enough time to escape and warn the hidden Kethmori communities about the danger they faced. The creature had a different idea. It began activating emergency systems throughout the ruins. Ancient defenses that had been dormant for thousands of years began coming online. The entire complex began sealing itself to protect its secrets. Lyra realized what the creature was. Doing it was turning the ruins into a fortress that would keep Hayes and his men trapped inside, while sending warning signals to all the other Kethmori communities. But activating these systems would drain all the power and leave them trapped as well. The creature looked at Kate with its intelligent yellow eyes and made sounds that Lyra translated as a question. It was asking if she was willing to make this sacrifice to protect both their species from those who would exploit them. Kate thought about her military oath to protect innocent people from harm. The Kethmori babies and their hidden communities were innocent. Hayes and his employers were the real threat to peace in the galaxy. She told the creature that she was ready to make the sacrifice. Nina quickly checked that the babies were healthy enough to survive in the sealed ruins. Lyra began downloading as much information as possible from the ancient databases. The creature began the final activation sequence. Energy flowed through systems that had not been used for millennia. The ruins transformed from ancient monuments into active fortresses designed to protect their inhabitants. 4 years if necessary. Hayes realized what was happening and began screaming orders to his men. They had to capture the communication center before it sealed itself permanently. But the ancient systems were faster than their modern weapons. Stone barriers began sliding into place across all entrances. Energy shields activated to protect vital systems. Emergency supplies that had been stored for thousands of years began activating to support life inside the sealed complex. Kate felt a strange sense of peace as she watched the creature complete its mission. The babies would be safe. The hidden communities would be warned, and Hayes would be trapped with them, unable to report their location to his employers. But the creature had one more surprise. As the final systems activated, it began opening a hidden passage that led to an emergency exit. The passage was too small for Hayes and his men to follow, but perfect for Kate, Nina, Lyra, and the babies. The creature had found a way to protect its people without requiring anyone to sacrifice their life. It had learned from Kate's example of courage and found a solution that saved everyone who deserved to be saved. As they prepared to escape through the hidden passage, Kate realized that this was just the beginning of a much larger story. The galaxy was about to learn that the Kethmori were not extinct, and that humans and aliens could work together to face common threats. But first, they had to get the babies to safety and warn the other communities about the mercenaries who were hunting them. The real adventure was just beginning. The hidden passage led through narrow tunnels that wound deep beneath the crystal forest. Kate carried one of the babies, while the creature carried the other 2. Nina and Lyra followed behind, carrying medical supplies and data they had rescued from the ancient systems. Behind them, they could hear Hayes and his men trying to break through the sealed barriers. The sounds of explosions and drilling equipment echoed through the tunnels. But the passage they were using had been designed to stay hidden even under the most intensive search. The creature moved with confidence despite its injuries. It knew these ancient pathways better than any map could show. Kate began to understand that the Kethmori had built their civilization with survival in mind. Every important site had multiple escape routes and hidden defenses. After hours of careful travel, they emerged from the tunnels into another part of the crystal forest. The creature immediately began making specific sounds and gestures toward the sky. Kate realized it was trying to call for help from its own people. Lyra had been studying the data they had rescued from the ruins. She discovered that the communication network had successfully sent warnings to dozens of hidden Kethmori communities. The other colonies now knew about the mercenary threat and were preparing their own defenses. Nina continued monitoring the health of all 3 babies. The sick one was almost completely recovered, thanks to the ancient medicine. The other 2 were healthy, but tired from their adventure. All 3 seemed to understand that their parent had saved them from great danger. Kate kept watch for signs of pursuit while the others worked. Hayes would not give up easily. Even trapped in the sealed ruins, he would find ways to contact his employers and request more resources. The threat was far from over. The creature suddenly became very alert and began making excited sounds. Kate looked up and saw shapes moving through the crystal trees above them. At first she thought they might be Hayes' aircraft, but these shapes moved differently. Ships unlike anything Kate had ever seen descended through the crystal canopy. They were sleek and organic looking, as if they had been grown rather than built. They made no sound as they landed in a clearing near the group. Figures emerged from the ships that looked similar to their creature companion. But these Kethmori wore clothing and carried advanced weapons. They moved with military precision, but also with obvious concern for the injured family. The creature ran toward the newcomers, while making joyful sounds. Kate realized this was a rescue party sent by one of the hidden communities. The communication network had worked perfectly, bringing help exactly when it was needed most. But the rescue was not without complications. Several of the newly arrived Kethmori pointed their weapons at Kate, Nina, and Lyra. They had come to rescue their own people. But they were not sure about trusting the humans who were with them. The creature quickly moved between its rescuers and the human women. It made urgent sounds and gestures, clearly explaining what had happened. Kate could not understand the words, but the meaning was obvious. The creature was telling its people that the humans were friends who had helped save the babies. One of the Kethmori, who seemed to be a leader, approached Kate directly. This one was taller than the others and wore markings that suggested high rank. It studied Kate carefully with intelligent golden eyes. The leader began making sounds similar to those the creature had taught Kate during their journey through the ruins. Kate tried to respond using the words she had learned. She said the sounds. That meant friend, and protection, and family. The leader seemed impressed that Kate had learned some of their language. It made sounds that Lyra translated as questions about what the humans wanted in return for their help. Kate realized this was a crucial moment that could determine the future relationship between their species. Kate spoke slowly and clearly, using the Kethmori words she knew, along with simple human words. She tried to explain that she did not want anything in return. She had helped because protecting families was the right thing to do, regardless of species. The leader discussed this with the other Kethmori for several minutes. Kate could tell they were having trouble understanding why humans would help without expecting payment or advantage. Their experience with humans had apparently not been positive. Nina stepped forward and showed the leader her medical equipment. She demonstrated how she had worked with the ancient Kethmori machines to save the sick baby. She offered to share her medical knowledge with their communities if they were interested. Lyra also approached the leader. She showed the data they had rescued from the ruins and explained how it contained historical information about both species. She suggested that understanding their shared past might help build a better future. The leader made what sounded like a decision. It gestured for all of them to come aboard the Kethmori ships. Kate was not sure if this was an invitation or an order, but she knew they had little choice. Hayes and his reinforcements were still searching for them. The interior of the Kethmori ship was unlike anything Kate had experienced. Everything seemed to be made from organic materials that glowed softly with their own light. The walls felt warm and alive, as if the ship itself was a living creature. The creature and its babies were taken to a medical area, where Kethmori doctors began examining them. Kate was relieved to see that they would receive proper care from their own people. The babies seemed excited to meet others of their species. Kate, Nina, and Lyra were taken to a different part of the ship where they could rest and eat. The food was strange, but nutritious. The furniture was designed for Kethmori bodies, but could be adjusted for human use through the ship's viewing ports. Kate could see Hayes' aircraft searching the crystal forest below. The mercenaries were using advanced sensors and had brought much larger forces. They were determined to find their escaped prisoners. The Kethmori leader came to speak with Kate again. Through a combination of gestures, simple words, and Lyra's translation help, it explained the situation. The Kethmori had been watching human expansion across the galaxy for many years. Most of what they had seen had convinced them to stay hidden. But Kate's actions had shown them that some humans were different. Some humans could be trusted to do the right thing, even when it was difficult or dangerous. This gave the Kethmori hope that the two species might be able to work together in the future. The leader asked Kate if she would be willing to serve as a contact between humans and Kethmori. There were many problems in the galaxy that both species faced. Pirates, slave traders, and corporations like Hayes' employers threatened innocent people of all species. Kate thought about this request carefully. She had always wanted her life to have meaning and purpose. Working to protect innocent people and build peace between species would be the most important job she could imagine. She accepted the leader's offer, but with conditions. Nina and Lyra would work with her as a team. They had proven themselves during the crisis and deserved to be part of any future cooperation. The leader agreed to this arrangement. The ship began moving toward one of the hidden Kethmori colonies, where Kate and her friends would learn about their new roles. But first, they had to deal with Hayes and his continuing threat to both species. The Kethmori had been monitoring Hayes' communications with his employers. They had learned that the mercenary company was planning a massive search operation to find and capture Kethmori communities across the galaxy. Kate realized that their adventure in the ruins had been just the beginning of a much larger conflict. Hayes' employers would not stop until they had captured or destroyed every hidden Kethmori community they could find. But now the Kethmori had allies who understood both species and could work to prevent this disaster. Kate, Nina, and Lyra would use their knowledge of human society to help protect their new friends. The creature that Kate had saved appeared at her side as the ship carried them toward safety. It made soft sounds that needed no translation. It was saying thank you for protecting its family and giving both species hope for a better future. Kate looked out at the stars and thought about all the challenges that lay ahead. There would be more mercenaries to stop, more innocent people to protect, and more bridges to build between different species. But she also thought about the 3 Kethmori babies who would grow up in a galaxy where humans and their people worked together instead of fighting each other. That future was worth any sacrifice she might have to make to protect it. The adventure that had started with a simple rescue mission had become the beginning of a new chapter in galactic history. And Kate Morrison, former Earth soldier turned protector of the innocent, would help write that chapter one act of courage at a time.